My beloved child, stop whatever you are doing right now. Do not scroll. Do not close this video. Stay with me for this moment. This is not a coincidence. Out of every voice you could have heard today, out of every message, every distraction, every place your eyes could have landed, you are here. And before you tell yourself this is random, before you decide this is meant for someone else, I need you to listen carefully. I arranged this moment long before this day arrived, long before you knew what would be weighing on your heart at this exact hour. I knew. I saw this moment before you ever stepped into it. And I have been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Not because I wanted to interrupt your day, but because I could not remain silent any longer. So pause. Let the noise wait. Let the unfinished tasks stay unfinished for a few minutes. Let the worries stop speaking, because heaven has something to say to you. And what I am about to reveal cannot be understood if you rush. My beloved child, you have been moving through life carrying things no one fully sees. You have become skilled at continuing, skilled at saying, "I'm okay," skilled at showing strength while quietly breaking. But today, I am not speaking to the version of you that everyone sees. I am speaking to the hidden places, the places that have grown tired, the places that no longer know how to ask for help, the places that still hope but are afraid to hope too much. Do not look away, because if you stay until the end of this message, I'm going to show you one specific key, something you have overlooked, something small but powerful that has been standing between your pain and the shift you have been praying for. And once you see it, you will understand why certain doors stayed closed. You will understand why certain seasons felt longer than expected. You will understand why your strength has not completely disappeared, even after everything you have carried. But not yet. First, I need your attention. Not half of it. Not while your mind is somewhere else. Not while your hands keep moving. Stay here. This moment matters, because what I am about to tell you is not information. It is recognition. I know there have been moments recently when you wondered if anyone noticed how hard this has become. Moments when you kept showing up while secretly feeling empty. Moments when you questioned whether your quiet endurance mattered at all. I saw every one of those moments, and that is why I called you here. Not to pressure you, not to impress you, but to speak before your heart grows too tired to hear. My beloved child, this is not a coincidence. Stop whatever you are doing. Stay until the end, because the truth you are about to hear may change the way you understand everything you have been walking through. My beloved child, now stay close and listen carefully, because I want to speak to the places inside you that have become quiet. Not silent because there is peace, quiet because they became tired. You have carried more than people realize, and I know there is a part of you that no longer expects anyone to notice. You learned how to continue. You learned how to answer questions with short replies. You learned how to say, "I'm fine," while hoping no one asks another question, because you are not sure you could explain what is happening inside you, even if you tried. But I know. I have known all along. I have watched your journey in moments nobody else witnessed. I was there during the ordinary days that slowly became heavy. I was there in the spaces between conversations. I was there when your shoulders looked relaxed, but your heart felt exhausted. I never looked away. My beloved child, I saw those nights when you laid down hoping sleep would come quickly because staying awake meant facing thoughts you did not want to hear. I saw you turn your face into the pillow and tell yourself tomorrow would be easier. I saw the moments your eyes stayed open in the dark while your mind replayed everything that went wrong. The things you said, the things others said, the opportunities that disappeared, The words you wished someone had spoken to you. I was there. I saw the tears that never became visible because you wiped them before anyone entered the room. I saw the tears that never even reached your eyes because they stayed trapped inside your chest. Nothing escaped my attention. And I need you to hear this. Your suffering has never happened in an empty room. I was present. You thought strength meant staying silent. You thought survival meant carrying everything alone. You thought asking for help made you weak. So you became the one who supports everyone. The one who remembers birthdays. The one who checks on others. The one who keeps showing up. The one who stays dependable. But quietly, inside yourself, you started wondering, who notices me? Who asks if I am okay? Who sees that I am running low? My beloved child, I noticed. I saw the pressure you placed on yourself. I saw how tired you became trying to hold together things that were never yours to hold. I saw the financial burden you stopped talking about, the calculations, the postponed plans, the messages you delayed opening, the way one unexpected expense felt heavier than anyone understood. I saw the private fear that asked, what if I cannot keep doing this? I saw the moments your body started carrying stress, your words never admitted. The headaches, the fatigue, the tight chest, the exhaustion that rest did not fix. I saw you searching for explanations, wondering whether something was wrong with you. My beloved child, you are not failing. You have simply been carrying too much for too long. I saw the disappointment you never explained to anyone, the relationships where you gave sincerity and received distance, the people you defended who misunderstood you, the loyalty you offered that was returned with silence. I saw how betrayal changed something inside you, not all at once, slowly, until trusting became harder, until opening your heart felt dangerous, until you started expecting less, so disappointment would hurt less. And still, you kept loving. You kept showing kindness. You kept trying. Do you know how precious that is to me? I saw every moment, every time you chose patience, every time you stayed gentle, every time you resisted becoming cold, every act of goodness that nobody applauded. Nothing was wasted. Not one prayer whispered while driving. Not one quiet act of generosity. Not one decision to keep going. Not one day you survived when quitting seemed easier. Heaven did not overlook any of it. You thought nothing was changing, but there were things being built inside you that you could not measure. There were places inside your spirit becoming stronger. There were things being removed that no longer belonged in your future. And soon, I am going to show you why this season could not end before now. Do not look away, because what I am about to reveal next will change the meaning of everything you thought you lost. Because there is something you have misunderstood. My beloved child, you believed that because the answer did not arrive when you expected, nothing was happening. You measured my presence by visible movement. You looked for immediate change. You looked for instant relief. You looked for signs that could be touched, counted, explained, and when they did not appear, you quietly wondered whether heaven had become silent. But I want to tell you something that your tired heart has not been able to see. I do some of my deepest work where human eyes cannot follow. There were moments when I protected you without announcing it. There were conversations that never happened because I prevented them. There were opportunities that disappeared because they carried consequences you could not see. There were paths that looked perfect but would have exhausted your soul. You mourned things I quietly rescued you from, and I understand why that hurt. Because from where you stood, loss looked like loss. Delay looked like abandonment. Closed doors looked personal. But my beloved child, I was not withholding life from you. I was preserving something inside you. You asked for immediate relief. I was building endurance. You asked for certainty. I was teaching trust. You asked for escape. I was forming depth. Not because I wanted you to suffer, not because pain pleased me, but because there are things I want to place into your future that require a version of you stronger than the one who entered this season. Look at yourself, not through disappointment. Look carefully. You are different now. You notice things you ignored before. You value peace differently. You recognize sincerity faster. You no longer chase everything that shines. You have become more careful with your energy, more intentional with your love, more aware of what truly matters. You call it exhaustion, but I call it refinement. And I know there were days when you wanted to stop, days when your faith felt mechanical, days when your prayers felt repetitive, days when you wondered whether continuing mattered, yet you continued. That matters. You stood up again. That matters. You chose not to become cruel. That matters. You kept your heart open when closing it would have been easier. That matters. You think heaven only notices giant acts, but I notice ordinary faithfulness. I notice quiet courage. I notice hidden perseverance. I notice the moments when nobody else clapped. My beloved child, you are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. And I want you to stop interpreting your journey through comparison, because comparison has stolen too much peace from you. You looked at others and assumed they were moving while you were stuck. You saw their announcements, their celebrations, their progress, and you questioned your own timing. But you do not know what I protected you from. You do not know what I spared you. You do not know what preparation was taking place beneath the surface. Your timeline is not broken. Your story is not delayed. Your life is not being skipped. Something is reaching completion. Something that could not be rushed. And I say this gently. The season where everything felt unclear is coming to its edge. The confusion, the constant waiting, the feeling that every answer stayed one step away. It is not endless. You are closer than you think. Not because circumstances suddenly changed, but because something inside you is becoming ready to recognize what could not be recognized before. So stay near. Do not shut down now. Do not retreat into numbness. Do not convince yourself nothing good can happen, because I have not brought you this far to leave you standing at the door. And what I am about to show you next will reveal why none of these years were wasted and why this chapter could only open now. My beloved child, now listen closely, because I want to uncover something that your pain has hidden from you for a long time. You believed that hardship meant distance. You assumed delay meant rejection. You quietly wondered whether the closed doors were proof that you had failed. I missed your moment, or disappointed me somehow, but that is not the truth. And if you only remember one thing from this moment, let it be this: not every delay is loss. Not every silence is absence. Not every interruption is punishment. There are seasons that feel empty only because what is growing cannot yet be seen. My beloved child, some of the roads you begged to walk would have asked for a version of you that did not yet exist. Some of the things you cried for would have become burdens if they had arrived too early. Some victories require stronger foundations than emotions can build. You thought I was standing in front of your future, but often I was standing in front of danger. You interpreted waiting as denial. I saw waiting as protection. You called certain moments wasted years. I called them hidden construction. You looked at unfinished chapters and thought something was wrong. I looked at unfinished chapters and knew the story was still becoming ready. There were parts of you that needed to become quieter before they could recognize what truly belonged to you. There were attachments that needed to loosen. There were expectations that needed to soften. There were definitions of success that needed to break, because what I prepared was never meant to impress people. It was meant to transform you, my beloved child. Refining is not rejection. Refining feels uncomfortable because it removes what cannot survive where you are going. Think about gold. It is not abandoned in fire. It is attended. It is watched. It is kept. Its value is never questioned during the process, and neither was yours. I never lost sight of who you were becoming. Even when you did, there were days you thought you were moving backward, but roots grow downward before branches grow upward. There were seasons when everything appeared still, but hidden growth does not announce itself. You wanted immediate answers. I was shaping lasting strength. You wanted certainty. I was teaching you to remain present without complete visibility. And I know that truth is difficult, because pain always asks the same question: why me? But I want to offer another question. What if this season was not trying to break you? What if it was teaching you how not to break? What if what felt delayed was actually being protected from arriving incomplete? What if the thing you thought disappeared was only being redirected? Stay with me, because what I am about to reveal next may change how you remember this entire season. My beloved child, there is another reason I allowed certain things to unfold slowly. You were measuring your life through urgency, but destiny cannot always be rushed. There are moments that open only when the heart is prepared to remain steady after receiving them, because receiving is easier than sustaining, and I was never interested in giving you something that would disappear as quickly as it appeared. I wanted to build something deeper, something that remains. So do not mistake preparation for abandonment. Do not mistake pruning for loss. Do not mistake unanswered moments for forgotten prayers. There are things being arranged inside you that cannot happen through comfort alone. And now hear me carefully. There are moments in life when people become tired just before something begins. Not because nothing is changing, but because transition often feels unfamiliar. This is why I do not want you to retreat now. Do not disconnect. Do not become cynical. Do not close your heart because progress does not look dramatic. Stay awake to what is forming, because opportunities are not always announced loudly. Some arrive quietly. Some appear disguised as small decisions. Some only become visible to those who remain attentive. And this next part matters. Do not treat this moment lightly. Not because grace disappears, not because love runs out, but because certain invitations are easier to recognize when your heart is open. Stay present. Stay listening. Because in what comes next, I am going to show you how to recognize the turning point you have been waiting for, and why the season ahead will require a different version of faith than the one that brought you here. My beloved child, I'll stay with me now, because this is the part I did not want you to miss. You have listened through the questions. You have stayed through the explaining. Now I want to speak about what comes next. Not the version of change you imagined. Not sudden perfection. Not a life where difficulty disappears. Something deeper. Something quieter. Something more real. Hear this carefully. The season you have been standing in is not ending because a calendar changed. It is ending because something inside you is no longer the same. There comes a moment in every long season when heaven does not remove the person from the process. Heaven announces that the process no longer owns the person. And that is where you are standing. Not at the edge of escape. At the edge of transition. You kept waiting for a sign outside of yourself. But the first sign has already appeared. You can feel it. Things that once controlled you do not hold the same power. Things that once consumed your thoughts no longer define every hour. Questions that once frightened you now make you pause instead of panic. You are changing. And because of that, Your season cannot remain unchanged forever. My beloved child, I want you to imagine something. A courtroom, not of fear, not of punishment, a place of truth, a place where old labels lose authority, a place where false conclusions no longer speak. There are things you accepted about yourself that were never meant to become permanent. Words spoken over you, mistakes you repeated, conclusions you formed. And now imagine a new declaration being spoken, not because you earned it, not because you performed perfectly, but because growth changes what becomes possible. The declaration is this: you do not have to remain who survival forced you to become. Read that again. You do not have to remain who survival forced you to become. You learn to stay guarded. You learn to expect disappointment. You learn to prepare for loss. You learn to shrink expectations, so hope would hurt less. But that version of you was never your final home. And now I am inviting you forward, not into certainty, into trust, not into control, into openness. Listen carefully, because what I am about to say matters. Breakthrough does not always begin when circumstances change. Sometimes breakthrough begins the moment you stop making agreements with hopelessness, the moment you stop introducing yourself through old pain, the moment you stop expecting every chapter to repeat the last one. That is where new movement begins. My beloved child, I still have one truth to share with you. Do not miss this. Many people leave too early. Not physically, internally. They stop expecting. They stop noticing. They stop participating in their own becoming. And because of that, they fail to recognize the new season when it arrives. Do not do that. Remain present. Remain available. Remain awake. Because what is ahead may not enter loudly. It may arrive through a conversation, a decision, a renewed desire, a restored courage, a peace you have not felt in years. And when it comes, do not dismiss it because it does not look dramatic. Now I want you to do something, not to prove yourself, not to earn anything, but to mark this moment. Write this somewhere. I will not let my past speak louder than my future. Say it slowly. Read it again. Let it become a decision. Because decisions shape direction, and direction shapes seasons. Stay until the end. Because there is one more thing you must understand before you step into what comes next, and that truth may change the way you walk from this day forward. Because the truth is, my beloved child, the next season will not ask you to become someone else. It will ask you to stop returning to places inside yourself that no longer fit who you are becoming. There are patterns that carried you through survival, but cannot lead you into peace. There are thoughts that once protected you, but now keep you small. There are old agreements that must quietly lose their authority, not through force, not overnight, but through a new decision repeated long enough to become a new way of living. And this is what I wanted to tell you all along. The waiting was never the destination. Readiness was. Not readiness to receive more. Readiness to recognize what has already begun. Because some of what you prayed for has already started in ways you did not expect. You thought breakthrough would arrive as one dramatic moment, but often it begins with simpler things. You breathe differently. You stop needing every answer immediately. You become less afraid of uncertainty. You start trusting your next step instead of demanding the whole map. You begin noticing beauty again. You feel compassion returning. You laugh without forcing it. You make one healthier choice. You answer one difficult conversation differently. And suddenly one day you realize you are not who you were. That is how new seasons often enter. Quietly. Listen carefully. I still have one more truth to share. Do not leave this moment emotionally, because this part matters. You have spent so much time preparing for disappointment that joy sometimes feels unfamiliar. You have become cautious with hope, careful with expectation, protective of your heart. And I understand why, but do not confuse wisdom with permanent self-protection. You do not need to expect pain in order to stay safe. You do not need to remain emotionally guarded in order to avoid being hurt. You do not need to carry old weather into new seasons. My beloved child, there are things ahead that cannot be received through clenched hands. Some things only arrive where there is room. Room for trust. Room for wonder. Room for participation. And I am not asking you to force belief. I am asking you to stay available, because something shifts when a person stops saying, "Nothing ever changes," and begins saying, "I am willing to notice what is changing." That willingness matters. Now I want you to mark this moment, not as superstition, not as a transaction, as intention. Write this: I am ready to receive what this season is teaching me. Write it not because words create reality, but because decisions create posture, and posture changes what you notice. Then say this quietly: I will not leave before the lesson becomes visible, because you have come too far to turn around now. You have carried too much to believe it was meaningless. You have grown too much to call yourself unchanged. And I need you to hear this with your whole heart. There is no wasted chapter in the hands of God. Not the slow ones, not the painful ones, not the confusing ones. Nothing disappears. Things transform, and you are transforming. One last thing before we move forward. When this new season begins unfolding, do not rush to announce it. Protect it. Live it. Let peace become stronger than performance. Let consistency speak louder than excitement. Let your life become the evidence. And when people ask what changed, you will not need dramatic words. You will simply say, I stopped fighting the season and started walking with God through it. Stay with me, because before this message ends, there is one final response I want to invite from your heart, and that response will determine how you carry everything you have heard today. My beloved child, before you leave this moment, I want to ask something of you, not because I need something from you, not because my love depends on your response, but because moments become meaningful when they are answered. You have listened. You stayed. You allowed these words to reach places inside you that you normally protect. Now do not rush away before you mark what happened here. There are moments in life that deserve to be remembered, not because everything changes instantly, but because something inside us decides to stop living the same way. So I want to invite you into a simple act. Not performance, not pressure, not perfection, only intention. Take a breath. Place your hand over your heart if you want, and write these words somewhere. I will not carry tomorrow before it arrives. Write it, not because writing creates miracles, but because words can become reminders when emotions become loud again. You do not need dramatic faith. You do not need to feel strong. You only need enough honesty to say, I am willing to continue. My beloved child, do not leave this season believing your story is defined by what exhausted you. You are not the sum of your hardest months. You are not the collection of your disappointments. You are not the version of yourself that existed only to survive. There is more life in you than you realize. There is more peace available than you believe. There is more healing possible than your fear allows you to imagine. And I want you to remember this in the days ahead, when old thoughts return, when uncertainty speaks loudly, when progress feels slower than expected. Do not interpret difficulty as absence. Return to what you know. Return to what is true. Return to what has already been spoken into your heart. Now I want to ask you for one more response. If something in this message reached you, if you feel lighter, if you feel seen, if you feel less alone than when you started, write, Amen. Not to earn anything, not to prove anything, only as your way of saying, I received what I needed today. And if there is someone you know who has been carrying too much in silence, someone who keeps saying they are okay, someone who has become tired without saying it out loud, share this message with them, not because numbers matter, but because people do. You never know which moment becomes someone else's turning point. My beloved child, there is one more thing I want to say. If this channel, these messages, or this space has encouraged you, and you freely want to support its work, you may, not to buy favor, not to create blessing, not because generosity guarantees outcomes, but because supporting something meaningful can be an expression of gratitude and participation. Let your giving, if you choose it, come from freedom and joy. Never fear, never pressure, never obligation. And before we continue, I want you to remember something deeply. I have never measured your worth by what you give. I have always looked first at your heart. Stay with me, because there is one final blessing I want to speak over you before this message ends, and I do not want you to miss it. Because before you return to your day, before you open another message, before life starts asking things from you again, I want to leave you with something to carry, not a prediction, not a guarantee that every problem disappears, something steadier, a blessing. My beloved child, there will still be ordinary mornings. There will still be moments when you do not understand everything. There will still be days that stretch your patience. But I pray that you begin meeting those days differently, not because circumstances become easier, but because your heart remembers what is true. I pray that when fear starts speaking loudly, peace becomes louder. I pray that when old memories try to convince you, nothing changes. You recognize that growth often happens quietly. I pray that when disappointment visits again, it no longer becomes your identity. I pray that your home feels lighter, that your thoughts become gentler, that your rest becomes deeper, that your conversations become more honest, that your steps become less rushed. I pray that you stop apologizing for needing rest. I pray that you stop treating yourself only as someone who produces and performs. I pray that you rediscover what it means to simply be alive. My beloved child, you do not need to have everything figured out before moving forward. You do not need complete confidence before taking the next small step. You do not need to become fearless to become faithful. Walk with what you have. Bring your questions. Bring your uncertainty. Bring your unfinished parts. Bring your ordinary heart, and trust that transformation is not built in one dramatic moment, but in daily returning. So if today meant something to you, if this moment felt like a reminder you needed, if something inside you softened, write one final word, Amen. Not because the word itself changes your future, but because sometimes a simple response becomes a marker, a moment you can remember later and say, that was the day I stopped speaking against myself. That was the day I stopped assuming nothing would ever change. That was the day I chose to remain open. And if there is someone crossing through a difficult season, someone who has become quiet, someone carrying more than they admit, someone who forgot how to hope, share this video with them. Share this video with someone who needs it. Not because you owe anyone, but because kindness travels farther than we realize. And sometimes people survive because someone remembered to reach out. My beloved child, thank you for staying until this moment. Thank you for giving your attention. Thank you for allowing your heart to remain open. And if you choose to support this channel or help continue creating messages that encourage people, let it come from gratitude and generosity, not pressure. The value of your life was never attached to what you give. You have already been loved before you offered anything. Now hear this final blessing. May peace visit your thoughts. May wisdom meet your decisions. May courage return where hesitation has lived. May gentleness meet your tired places. May hope quietly rebuild what fear tried to erase. May you remember that being human does not make you distant from God. May you discover that you are allowed to begin again. And when this day ends, and the room becomes quiet, and nobody sees the thoughts you carry, remember this: you are still held. You are still seen. You are still invited forward. I love you more than words can say. God bless you.